Hey, so glad you guys are here. We're starting a new series this summer entitled Dreamer. So if you don't have a Bible, we don't have screens for you to read along. So I encourage you to bring a Bible and even a notepad and a pen so you can stick around with us. And then at one point while I'm talking, I want to be referencing this piece of paper. It's got this Joseph's lineage, and it might be good for you to read along. So if you didn't get one of those, can you raise your hand? Do we have anybody that can hand some of these out? Who do we have? So come on, if you keep your hand up while I'm talking, it's okay. It's not a distraction, and we'll keep going. So we're going to be studying the life of a man named Joseph. Joseph is a real historical figure. He's a major figure, in fact, in the book of Genesis, the book of origins, the first book of the Bible. In the Hebrew Bible, the Old Testament, he lived in the middle of the 2nd century BC. Now, it's an interesting story. There have been Broadway plays written about his life. There have been multiple movies and shows and books, and his life is full of twists and turns, just like yours and mine. There are some things that seem like a shoo-in, seem like a predictable way for it to go, and then they don't work out that way. In fact, he experiences unbelievable great successes, and on the other side, he experiences extreme hardships and lows that very few people could bear. And through it all, he continues to dream. Not only does he dream himself, but he actually gives the interpretation of other people's dreams. And I believe in order for Joseph's story to end the way that it did, and I'm not going to give away the ending, you got to come back for all 8 weeks, the divine had to be involved. God had to intervene because he was up against the wall on some crazy, crazy stuff. And you're like, this dude's not going to make it. Like nobody has the grit that this guy would have. Nobody has the faith or the hope or the ability to bounce back after all that has happened to him. But we'll get to the end of the story and we'll see how God helped him. And through it all, Joseph kept dreaming. There are times in our lives when we form a dream. I hope you have a hope, a desire, a great what if. And hopefully that brings you purpose. It brings you pursuit. It brings you ambition. It brings you something to live for, something to strive for, something to push for, right? And then there are other times in our lives when a dream is all that is there to keeping us from giving up. Like, man, I don't have much, but if this thing pays off, then it's worth it. Then I'll hang in there. All I have is clinging by my fingernails onto that hope, that dream. I wonder how vastly different your answers would be if I were to ask you today, what's a dream that you've had? And you were to say it out loud, I wonder how different it'd be from the person sitting next to you in their own lawn chair. I wonder how different our paths have led us to this location this Sunday, this morning, out here on this hilltop. I just wonder how different what you've been through, what you haven't been through, what you've said or heard or seen or haven't. We all have our own unique journeys. But one thing that is a constant, a unifier among all of us, is that we are all made in the image of the same God, the only one God. We've all been given this opportunity of salvation, of hope, of forgiveness through his son, Jesus. And so when we're here this morning, I wonder what one of your dreams have been. And then the next question is, what keeps you going? Why haven't you given up on your dream yet? On one of the dreams in your life that hasn't happened yet, why haven't you given up? Why haven't you thrown in the towel or waved the white flag? Like what is it? Is it like, man, if this is a game changer, this is a life changer, if this thing actually pans out, then all is worth it. And then I would ask another question is, what dreams in your life have you actually seen come to fruition? Let's do that. Let's encourage one another. What in your life, has there been a scenario or an example or an event where you're like, this is impossible. The only way this is going to work is if God comes through, and he did. Show of hands. Has that happened in your life? Look around, people. It is possible. There is a God who can make the impossible possible, can make the dream come true, and he did it for all of these people here today. Both the pursuit of a dream and the accomplishment of a dream are fundamentally important in the life of a Jesus follower. And I'll tell you why. Because the pursuit of a dream that you have not ascertained it, you have not reached yet, the pursuit of that, it keeps you hungry. It keeps you motivated. It keeps you pushing forward, and it gives us purpose and direction. So you should always have a dream that you have not attained yet. The second thing is, remember the dreams that have been accomplished, a former dream, because it gives you faith and confidence to believe for that new dream. We've talked about that. Scripture is full of that. It's full of all of these tabernacles. It's full of all of these places of worship. And we say we've done there. We've experienced God here. We've experienced God here. And it's Well, why can't we experience him here as well? If he's already done it here and we have altars to prove it, then perhaps, just perhaps, there could be a new one that is just down the road ahead of me. No matter how audacious or scary, I hope we can name a dream that we hope to be realized. And we have faith for that dream that still lies ahead of us. So these next few weeks, we are going to study the ultimate dreamer that goes by the name of Joseph. And like us, he experiences the sweetness of victory in life, but he also tastes the bitterness of tragic loss, heartbreak, and failure. But isn't that what real stories are made of? Isn't that what true stories are? Isn't that what our story is? The good and the bad, the sweet and the bitter, the wins and the losses, the living and the dead. I mean, that is what a real true story is, a story that I can relate to. Because if it's always happy beginnings, happy middles, and the ending is always they lived happily ever after, well, that's not always the case for us. So I want us to study this story, not that it's happened long ago, but that it still happens today in you and me. So if you have your Bibles, which I hope you do, if not, that's okay. This is going to be more of a narrative example of what's going on. But Genesis chapter 37, verse 1 through 11. Here we go. I'm going to read it to you. Jacob settled in the land where his father had lived as an alien, the land of Canaan. This is the story of the family of Jacob. Jacob is Joseph's dad, okay? So Jacob, it's his family here now. Joseph is his son. Joseph, being 17 years old, was shepherding the flock with his brothers. He was a helper to the sons of Bilhah and Zilpah, his father's wives. And Joseph brought a bad report of them to their father. Now Israel, which is also another name for Jacob, the same name, his dad is Jacob in Israel. He goes back and forth. His dad, Israel, loved Joseph more than any of his other children because he was the son of his old age. And he made him a long robe with sleeves. But when his brothers saw that their father loved him more than all his brothers, they hated him and could not speak peaceably to him. Once Joseph had a dream, and when he told it to his brothers, they hated him even more. He said to them, "Listen to this dream that I dreamed. There we were, binding sheaves in the field. Suddenly my sheaf rose and stood upright, and your sheaves gathered around it and bowed down to my sheaf." His brothers said to him, "Are you indeed to reign over us? Are you indeed to have dominion over us?" So they hated him even more because of his dreams and his words. He had another dream and told it to his brothers, saying, "Look, I've had another dream. Hey guys, you excited to hear this one?" The sun, the moon, and 11 stars were bowing down to what's got two thumbs, and it's this guy. But when he told it to his father and to his brothers, his father rebuked him and said to him, "What kind of dream is that you have had? Shall we indeed come, and I and your mother and your brothers bow to the ground before you?" So his brothers were jealous of him, but his father kept the matter in mind. So that's our passage for today. And I want to break it down a little bit more in some detail. Allow me to give you some context to what's happening here. Joseph had 11 brothers and one sister. He was boy 11. He had one younger brother named Benjamin. So his father had 12 boys and one girl, and you've already noticed in the section I just read, there are some unhealthy family dynamics at play, right? You would say, I don't know, maybe they should see somebody. Maybe they should express their feelings a little clearly. Joseph's brothers cannot stand him, and in fact, the Bible says that they hated him multiple times. They hated him. I hate that guy. They hated him. It says they couldn't say one kind word to him. They could not speak peaceably to him. Everything they said was lashing out, striking out, was venom out of their mouth into his ears. They hated this guy. So how did we get here? The story opens with Joseph. He's already 17 years old. We've already kind of missed some backstory, I suppose. What happened to the first 16 years? We see from the passage that Joseph, he's son number 11. He has 10 older brothers, one younger brother, and his older brothers hate him. Now, we need to understand, and I think that you do, there's fractured relationships in all of our lives. There are people that you used to be friends with that maybe you're not today. There's a family dynamic that maybe isn't as healthy as it could be. And you say, well, it didn't just happen in one instant, or at least not usually. So how did we get here? Because the root of bitterness and malice was watered and tended for years in this family. So if we look, it says, Joseph, being 17 years old, was shepherding the flock with his brothers. He was a helper to the sons of Bilhah and Zilpah, his father's wives, and Joseph brought a bad report of them to their father. So Joseph is the young runt. He's the helper. He's the understudy. He's the greenhorn. He's the apprentice. He's not running the show, and they're out in the field, and what does he do? He comes back to daddy, and he's like, hey, I got a bad report about all these guys. It says, them, all of them. He has a bad report about all of them, and Joseph's the young helper. He's just the shepherd hand, and yet his older brothers are doing all the real work, and he brings a report to his dad, and not that, but actually a bad report. He's bad-mouthing these guys. I think too many times we're like, hey, there's clearly one villain and there's clearly one victim. That's not usually always how it goes. Somebody has some kind of poison they have put in the pot as well. Now, this passage doesn't tell us if they deserve the bad report, if their performance warranted this or not. We don't know that. But we do know that Joseph gave one even though he's the youngest, which is a little odd for the youngest to be going to the manager to give a bad report. Usually it's whoever's in charge gives a manager report. And he gives a bad one about them, all of them. All of them were bad? Can you believe that? Have you guys ever gotten a performance review at work? You're like, I don't want to think about it. I'm not going to raise my hand. That's a tough performance review when everyone on staff is just doing terrible. Everyone? Like the whole thing, everyone's terrible. See, I see here that a 17-year-old is running to the president of the company, telling him that all of his managers and coworkers above him and beside him are doing a terrible job, but he's doing great. Yeah, I don't think that would fly very well in any organization. I don't think your coworkers are going to appreciate that about you if that's the report that you say, hey, I did awesome this month in sales, but everyone around me, they're just terrible. They're horrible. And we wonder why this guy's brothers don't like him. So why is this strange dynamic even allowed? Why is Jacob even entertaining this conversation with his second to youngest son, Joseph? Why is he even allowing him to have this place? This type of dysfunction, this unhealthy institution. Joseph brought a bad report of them to their father. Now, Israel, Jacob, loved Joseph more than any other of his children because he was the son of his old age. Means when he was really old, he had him, so he was like one of the babies of the family, and he made him a long robe with sleeves. How many of you guys are the youngest child in here? Yeah, it feels good, doesn't it? Yeah. I've loved it my whole life. Israel also named Jacob, the father here, loved Joseph more than any other of his children. We don't need to look much further. The Bible tells it, right? This unhealthy family life was created by none other than who? The dad. The dad ruined this family. The dad is causing his kids to hate each other. It's like, oh man, these kids, why don't you guys stop fighting? You stop fighting. Well, what if you're the cause of their fighting? What if you've actually watered and farmed their fighting? What if you've watched it grow and you've actually been a root cause of it? His kids literally hate each other. His 17-year-old is acting like a spoiled brat, and Jacob has created this venomous environment for his own family. He's playing favorites, and everybody knows it. His older sons knew it, and they hated Joseph for it. And Joseph acts entitled because of it. He knows that he's got this. He knows that his dad's just going to look the other way or give him a pat on the back. He knows that he's going to get away with this kind of stuff, and it keeps happening. And so the sons don't hate the dad. They hate their brother. And so we find ourselves, him getting a long robe with sleeves, and you're like, okay, that's a weird form of affectionate giving, right? What is that one? Well, if I was a 17-year-old boy and my dad was going to give me a new car or a long robe with sleeves, which one did you choose? If you guys are like, man, Mom and Dad, I really want a long robe with sleeves for Christmas this year. That's really what I'm gunning for. Like, let's make that one happen. See, when we read this, we need to think that this is not an odd present, not to them, not in the mid-2nd century BC in a pastoral agrarian society. We've already heard the family business, right? It's sheep. It's shepherding. That's the family business. That's who he's giving the bad report about to his older brothers. And to actually work that business, you didn't ever wear anything long or anything with sleeves because it would get covered in slop and mud. So by Joseph's dad giving him a long robe with sleeves, what is he doing? He's making him boss. That's the uniform for the boss. That's the uniform for the CEO that stands out there and just project manages. You guys do that. Now you move it that way. Now you move it over that way. Now I'm not going to go in the slop with you guys. That's your job. I got the long robe with the sleeves. Everybody see the sleeves? The sleeves are talking. He gives it to his 11th son. Out of the first 10 being like, you all, I know you're older. I know you're more experienced. I know you're running the business. But how about this little 17-year-old boss all of you and tell you what to do? I just gave him a fancy robe. What is his dad thinking? He's making him the boss. So now he doesn't have to do any more work, and he's pampered. And if you think about it, you must ask yourself, is this even a gift that his dad gave them? Is this a gift, or is this a curse? Is this a bullseye on this son that he professes to love so much? And he's trying to love him the best way that he can, but he's actually causing division, dissension in his family by the odd, terrible way that he's loving. You know that you can love someone in an unhealthy way? You know that you can receive love in an unhealthy way, and you can say, but I love them. That doesn't mean the interrelationship that you have is healthy. It means you're starting with a proper premise, but the transaction elements that are taking place have become extremely toxic. And so here we have a father who's telling himself that he loves his family, but his actions are not loving at all. In fact, they are the very poison that is killing and choking his very children. You always hope that a father is kind, and some of us have had kind fathers and some of us haven't. You always hope that a father is present, and some of us have had present fathers and some of us haven't. You always hope that a father is empathetic, that he's fair, and that he loves all of his kids equally. And here we see a glaring example of a failed fatherhood. Jacob, the dad, has created such a terrible family environment that the older brothers hated their younger brother and couldn't even say one word to him. Jacob created this. Jacob promoted this, intentionally or unintentionally. I hope you understand that your actions, either loving, see, I had a good cause, I had good intention. I'm not asking your intention, I'm asking what it was the outcome. Is there life or death? Is there fruit? Or is there poison coming out of what relationships you have a say in? You affect your kids' lives by the decisions you make. You affect your spouse, your friend, your parents. Your decisions affect other people. And the decisions and the actions of one person, Jacob, has now almost ruined the lives of 11 of his kids. Ruined. But in the midst of all this brokenness and this sin, God can still move. No matter what your track record has been in marriage, or in childhood, or parenthood, or in friendship, or life stage, whatever it's been, there's still hope. God can still move in the midst of the darkest, most fractured, broken, toxic environments. God still moving. Even in the middle of all this human-made mess, another gift has been given. Not the terrible gift of the father of a robe, but God gave Joseph a different gift. His dad gives him a robe and that divides the family, but God gives him a gift that will actually save this family. God gives him the gift of prophecy. He gives Joseph the ability to dream and interpret dreams. And these aren't just any dreams. These are dreams that actually come true. It's not like I had a dream, and what does that mean? I don't know. Like the unicorn represented a Ford Tundra or Toyota Tundra, and like I don't like. It's none of that. It's like, what does this dream mean? And it's like, this is going to happen in the next 5 years. Like 6 months from now, this dream is actually going to happen, and here's how it's going to pan out in your life. So here we have God giving this amazing divine gift, and it's not appreciated, and it's not valued. And here's the other thing: it's not properly operated. God gives Joseph this incredible gift, and because of Joseph's entitlement, how spoiled he's been, how young and inexperienced he is, he tries to share this amazing God-given gift, and what does it end up doing? It actually only hurts his family further. It makes his brothers more jealous. Is what he's dreaming about his brothers bowing down to him going to happen one day? It actually does happen. But should the 17-year-old be saying it with the long sleeves on while his brothers are in the middle of like this pig trough? Probably not the best time, Joseph. Did you know that you can use a God-given gift and it can actually hurt? It can actually hurt the world. It can hurt others. If you don't take what God has given you to bless the world as an intentional way to serve the world and use it well, use it wisely, use it intelligently, that can actually be destructive and not constructive. Once Joseph had a dream, and when he told it to his brothers, they hated him even more. This is verse 5. Verse 6, he said to them, "Listen to this dream that I dreamed. where they were binding sheaves in the field, and he said all this stuff, and then he goes to his dad down here, and he had another dream and told it to his brothers, saying, look, the sun, the moon, the 11 stars are bowing down to me. But when he told it to his father, to his brothers, even his father rebuked him. He said, what kind of dream is that? The reality of these dreams actually do come true. And his brother, his father, who supposedly loved him, right? So it's like, that's not true. That's not true, Joseph. His father's even denying his God-given dream. This father is like, no, take the gifts I give you. I'm going to make you spoiled. Take the gifts I give you. I'm going to make you entitled. I'm going to make you lazy. I'm going to make you weak. I'm going to make you say ignorant things. Like, these are all the gifts that I'm giving you, Joseph, and God is giving him actually good dreams and good gifts. And when Joseph starts operating those, his father Jacob's like, oh, what's that stuff? Like, no. You got it all wrong, man. No, you're my spoiled baby. Like don't try to be a hero. This is what his dad says. He had another dream, and he told it to his brother, saying, look, I've had another dream, the sun, the moon, the stars. His dad praises him and spoils Joseph for all the wrong reasons, and when Joseph actually gets something right, actually does something worthy of affirmation that is from God himself, his dad rebukes it in him. His dad was so far off that not only was he leading him down the wrong path, when he started going to the right path, his dad takes him away. He's like, no, that's the wrong path too. I don't need to tell you that parents can screw you up. My dad's a therapist for 30 years, PhD psychologist. I don't have to tell you that what's happened to you in your childhood can still reverberate in your adulthood. I don't have to tell you that you need wise counsel and someone to invest in you, mentor you, disciple you, speak life into you. We need these things. And Joseph was without all of them. So as a 17-year-old, can we really blame him that he's so lost? He's trying to exercise this God-given gifts of dreams, and he's getting it all wrong. He's trying to have his family dynamic, and he's like ratting on his brothers, and then he's offending his dad, and he's just like, well, I'm only 17, and you've raised me in this broken household, so how do I know how to function? What if the story ended there? What if the story ended there where you're only as good as your parents have been to you? And some of us, that's great, and some of us, it's not. What if you can only be as good as your older siblings or younger siblings have been to you? You can only be as good as your track record or your history of what's happened. But that's not the God that we serve. The God that we serve is not you're only as good as you've been, it's you're as good as God is. You have the possibility of loving the way you should love, of living the way you should live, of blessing and changing this world, not because you're good enough or your parents or your siblings or your families, but because the God we serve is perfect and he loves this world perfectly. And if we allow him and ask him to use us as conduits of change and of purpose, then he will. This is the God that we serve. If you have this piece of paper now, I want to look at this genealogy, Joseph's lineage. So if you look all the way to the bottom right corner, Joseph is in blue. He says number 11, he's 11th kid. Under him, there's Benjamin. Then you got these other siblings all in those bottom boxes. You got Reuben, number 1, Simeon, Levi, Judah, right? All the way through. And you say, oh, now why are there 4 different boxes? Because his dad, Jacob, had 4 different wives. Who says polygamy is okay? Nobody. It tears the family apart. Jacob married Leah, and he had these children with Leah. Then he married Rachel, and he had these 2 children with Rachel. And he married Zilpah and had these 2 children with her, and married Bilhah, and he had these 2 children with her. So they're all half siblings. They're all half siblings living in this house together. Their mothers don't get along. Jacob doesn't get along with any of them, and they all hate each other. Jacob, out of his greed, out of his lust, out of his want, has created a broken family that hates each other. And so when you say, oh, well, so Joseph has 4 moms. How screwed up is that? No, what? This poor 17-year-old. And then you say, okay, but let's look at Jacob. And so Jacob is a bad father. How did Jacob get to be a bad father? Look at Jacob's childhood. Isaac and Rebekah, they had twins. I know something about having twins. They had Esau and Jacob. Esau was born first. He was going to be the second in charge in the family. He was going to get the birthright. And guess what? Jacob's mom came up to him, whispered in his ear, and said, let's steal that from your older brother, from your twin. He's like, my twin? She's like, yes, let's cheat your father, lie to your brother, steal from them, then you can be the guy. And he did. So no wonder he's a terrible father to Joseph because his mother Rebekah was a terrible mother to him. So he experienced terrible parenting, therefore he became a terrible parent as well. Let's look at their parents. Look at Isaac's parents, Sarah and Abraham. Abraham and Sarah wanted to have kids. They were getting up in years, and we don't have any yet. And God says, I promise you're going to have kids. Promise you you're going to have kids. I promise you it's going to be miraculous. Sarah says, I don't believe it. Go get Hagar, my maidservant. They bring her over, and she's like, Abraham, sleep with her, marry her, so I can at least have a kid. So he does, and they have Ishmael. And then sure enough, some years later, Sarah and Abraham have Isaac. And she's like, oh, now I have my own baby. I don't want that baby anymore. And Abraham's like, wait, what? What are you talking about? She goes, yeah, get rid of Hagar and Ishmael. So at 14 years old, Ishmael's kicked out of the house with his mom into the desert with some bread and water, and Abraham and Sarah leave them just to die. And God saves their life. Now, what happens through all the genealogy from Abraham to Isaac to Jacob to Joseph? Enmity, war. Ishmael and Isaac, they became enemies. And Ishmael, the Ishmaelites, became the enemies of Israel for the rest of time. Jacob and Esau, the Edomites, became enemies of Israel for the rest of time. And now we have these 12 brothers, these 12 tribes, and they're already at war as teenagers. So you say, how did we get here? Because sin begets sin begets sin. Brokenness begets brokenness begets brokenness. And if we were to stop here and say, well, you say, Terrence, you don't know me, but man, my dad, my mom, my childhood, my whatever, I'm hopeless, it's over. No, that's not how the story ends. That's how the story begins. Let me say it again. That's how the story begins. That's not how it ends. I don't care how broken or fractured any relationship you've ever had, God can heal it. And God can help you and build new ones. You don't have a family of your own? Great, be a part of our family. The church is intended to care and love for one another. In closing, I'm going to have the band come on up here. I want to tell you one last thought. You may or may not have people in your life that love you, but that doesn't mean it needs to stay that way. A church is supposed to be a place where people pursue a God, even though we're still imperfect. And when someone else hurts and someone else suffers, then we care for them. When someone else celebrates, then we celebrate with them. Jamie and Melissa Greer are part of this church family. They have a toddler named Piper. They had a baby River who was born just a couple months ago. On Friday, baby River died. Tragically. And I was talking with Jamie and Melissa. And I was telling them, we love you, we love you, we love you. And the truth is, some of you don't even know who they are, but you're about to pray for this family because they need it. In our darkest times, it's not who you're blood related to that matters. It's who you're spiritually related to that cares and will get on their knees and pray for you. So are you willing to pray for Jamie and Melissa and Piper this morning? So let's pray a prayer of faith that is powerful and effective. Jesus, I pray right now. In fact, I just got a text while I was up here talking from Jamie. Right now, Jesus, would you give them peace that is beyond understanding? Would you give them grace that is bigger than their doubts and their worries? Would you give them the image of baby River holding your hand, laughing and dancing and twirling around and singing your name? May we as a church love them well, comfort them well, write them poetry and letters, make them meals, just sit and cry with them and love them. May we be the family that we've always needed. And may we understand that we're part of the family we've always wanted to belong to.